When selecting buildings for Architecture Codex, I limit myself to buildings that I have visited, as I have found that written descriptions and photographs really don't fully explain a building. As an architect, as a practitioner of the art, I see things differently than a historian or a critic might see, and it's those insights that I am trying to bring to you. Since I have not yet been to Azerbaijan or Dubai, I have not been able to review some of the great Zaha Hadid buildings, until recently, when the firm brought to New York City one of her projects. By the way, if you would like to see me expand on the kinds of buildings I do on Architecture Codex, I'm looking for a sponsor for trips to the Far East, across the United States, or all around the globe. You know how to reach me, and my sketchbook is itching. Regular viewers will know that I categorize the current wave of Starchitects as ego architecture. They diverged from the last 5,000 years of human history, where artists and architects searched for beauty outside of themselves, finding inspiration in nature, spiritual redemption, or pure logic. Our current leading architects are about branding. Their goal is to create iconoclastic and unique expressions in a search for identity. For the Starchitect, the entire project can often be summarized in one word, a word like Hadid. In the world of architecture, that last name has the same kind of power as names like Gehry, Pei, Meyer, and many others. They are the architectural equivalents of Prince, Cher, and Liberace. Such branding gives these architects more power to exert their influence and reduce the limitations put on their projects, limitations all too familiar to the generic unknown brand of architect. What happens when the Hadid brand meets the reality of the New York City real estate market? Architects, unlike poets, painters, and authors, need a patron who is wealthy enough to make our visions come true. That is why if I was to redo my career plan as a 20-year-old, I would add the task, meet more rich people. It is logical then for a developer to ask the British-Iraqi Zaha Hadid to design for the New York City luxury condo market. But did they realize how antithetical Manhattan is to the Hadid style? Consider Hadid's most celebrated work, the Heydar Aliyev Center in Baku, Azerbaijan, which I have noted I have not visited, so this is a second-hand account. It is a museum and conference center complex completed in 2012. Yet, like Gothic and other houses of worship, it is spiritual and ethereal. Museums have replaced the cathedral as the architectural focus of our age. It is said to have been inspired by the local topography. Not sure I see that. Regardless, the forms, often derided as bubble buildings, became possible in the modern world because of computers. It is smoothly irregular. It would be impossible to draft on a flat drawing board and impossible to build using conventionally extruded and rolled metals. But the building Hadid created has the feeling of a bolt of white cloth, unrolled, folded, tucked, and wrapped around spaces, frozen in a moment before all the fabric settles to the ground. To appreciate the form, it requires immense space around it. And this kind of form and space became the Hadid brand. You can see it in the London Aquatic Centre and the Beijing Daxing International Airport, and elsewhere. And that would be the primary conundrum of placing a Zaha Hadid building in New York City. The real estate is just too expensive. It would make no sense to buy the 8 blocks around the block in the middle with your Hadid building just to admire it. And it would be economically foolish to not take that one block and maximize the amount of building you can put on it according to zoning ordinances. Buildings designed by zoning ordinance tend to be boxy, lumpy, and fill the site edge to edge. The new building, known as 520 W28 or 520 West 28th Street, branded by location, is in the hot new neighborhood of Chelsea, physically attached to the hot new elevated walkway, the High Line, just south of the new but cold, stone-dead Hudson Yards. It is part of Manhattan's residential development trend designed for people of means, A 1,700 square foot 2-bedroom unit goes for over $4 million. The 7,000 square foot 5-bedroom unit is going for about $25 million. It is believed that there are enough billionaires and Hollywood media types to buy them. These are not the people's primary homes generally. They tend to function as their New York home and a reasonable place to park or invest a few $1,000,000. Reasonable as long as the streets don't return to the New York of the 1970s, which many don't remember but have seen depicted in movies like The Joker. I am okay with real estate as an avant-garde investment and not just a home, employing architects, engineers, contractors, and tradespeople to build unique, expensive, elaborate space, marked up by 10%, is a noble way to spend one's disposable income. Socialists might find this atrocious, but for the working people, this is a form of giving back. And as your architect, I will happily spend every last dime that you have. But if you look at 520 West 28th from a Google Earth level, it is an L-shaped box, the antithesis of Hadid's flowing bubble forms. If you are marketing to the cognoscenti who know Hadid and will buy Hadid, how do you make sure the building is identified as Hadid? One method would be to put a big sign on top of the building that says Hadid, and they did that. Perhaps you could do something on the inside, like introduce sculptural curves whenever possible, mostly in cabinetry and fixtures, and they did that. That's the limit though on the inside, as swooshing ceilings take up too much space and undulating floors are hard to walk upon. To further the brand on the exterior, you can simply stick Hadid-style curves onto the zoning-optimized box, and they did that too. The exterior facades are essentially flat, but with protruding artifacts that resemble awnings and terraces that are curved with a hint of the folding, swooshing, and undulation that Hadid has on her other buildings. It is vaguely reminiscent of Gaudi's Casa Mila. But the facade is not about the forms or the shape of the space that makes the other Hadid buildings so exciting. It is about decoration applied to flatness. It appears to me that the soul of Hadid's buildings, the creation of large spaces using forms that appear to float and billow, has been lost on this building. Rather, elements of her style have been stuck on the building, like putting a fancy hood ornament on an otherwise sensibly designed Winnebago. Is that the future of the brand now that Zaha Hadid herself has passed? Will her firm turn the Hadid brand into the Chef Boyardee of architecture? I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture Codex.